The number one mistaken belief is that you can just launch and spend all your marketing dollars post-launch and your game is going to go well. Particularly if you're a desktop game, this is the number one way to guarantee that your game fails. I've seen games with 500,000 to 1 million Steam wishlists convert into almost nothing.
That's ridiculous, right? Why would someone wishlist a game if they're not planning to buy it? So something's going wrong. Today, I'm joined by one of the most influential minds in game publishing. He's helped over 690 games go from development to global launch, including multiple #1 App Store hits. As co-founder and president of Immutable, a multi-billion-dollar gaming platform backed by global investors, we got into why 90% of games fail before they launch and how studios can flip that stat with the right data, audience strategy, and AI-powered tools.
Steam doesn't reveal any analytics. You have no idea the quality of the cohort of these players that you're bringing in through the door. And if you've tasked your marketing person with get the most Steam wish lists, they are going to go to the cheapest CAC source possible, which is probably the players who are the least likely to spend.
In today's podcast, Robbie shared what Immutable learned from partnering with top AAA studios and have turned those lessons into a platform any team can use.
The biggest problem we see devs make is they go and have a great activation, they get a bunch of PR, some sort of successful campaign in the year before they launch, and they never talk to those players again. And these people are like, what the hell is this game? I can't even remember signing up to this. I don't trust this.
From beating 90% failure rates to building a billion-dollar company, please enjoy today's guest, the co-founder and president of Immutable, Robbie Ferguson. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Harry. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I'm very excited to have this chat because this is kind of unprecedented. I've always thought Immutable equals Web3. And then there's just been a massive splash, at least on my LinkedIn feed the past couple of weeks. And there's a lot going on. So I'd love for people who don't know or may have heard something, what are you guys up to right now? Because it seems like there's a lot of moving parts. And for a lot of people, at least I've been speaking to, they're like, okay, what is happening?
Totally. So for anyone listening, bit of context, Immutable is a gaming infrastructure provider that helps games improve their growth and helps customers own and get better value from the games that they play. We are the leader in Web3 infrastructure, and we've recently expanded our software to sort of the invisible software that any game in the world can use and fundamentally improve their acquisition, retention, engagement, activation, and monetization. And for a bit of context, we've raised well over, I think, $300 million from Temasek, from Tencent, from some of the top gaming names in the world. And we've been really laser focused on how do we help games succeed in, I think, one of the toughest building environments for games ever, and how do we help players get a fairer deal out of the games that they're playing.
Beautiful. And for a bit of scale, because the numbers here are a bit crazy. So you've already supported over 690 game launches. So this is a lot of data. And I have a bit of a personal question.
Those are all funded games. So this is not, long tail. Those are all, significantly funded games building, sort of indie plus in terms of their development scale.
Yeah. So there's a lot of data and you're already working with Ubisoft as of at least August this year, right? Yeah. Yep. So can't wait to get into it. So the main topic we're going to cover today, guys, is why a lot of the games fail and what is the science behind the ones that win from the data that you guys have. Before I get into it, I want to really ask, why do you care so much? Because surely you've kind of done enough to kind of chill right now, just from a personal level. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing games audience? What's driving you right now?
Yeah, I think there's two answers to that. The first answer is I am super passionate about what we are building. Every day we meet game developers who they themselves and their teams put their heart and their livelihoods every single day into building a game that is going to bring people joy and bring people delight. And a ton of those games fail not because their game sucks, but because marketing is more difficult than ever. There were 19,000 games that shipped on Steam last year. 14,000 shipped the year before. So the amount of games, especially because of AI driving costs down, is higher. There's the same number of players, and for them to actually get to good distribution is harder than ever. And the other part of that is, of course, I'm very passionate about how do we make in-game asset ownership, which is 70% of gaming spend, $150 billion a year, fairer, and a model where players can actually own and have essentially real value attached to those economies where games want to do that.
Yeah.
But the second reason, and just So I'm not doing any double speakers. I love the game of business. I love who I work with. I love our team. We have a phenomenal and very bright and very enthusiastic team. And I find personally, the pursuit of mastery and business really exciting. And I want to grow Immutable to be the biggest enterprise possible and help deliver on our mission at bigger and bigger scales.
Beautiful. All righty. Let's get into it. So in terms of the reason why games fail, you mentioned that number, 19,000 games launching on Steam. And I've actually come up a few times on the show. There's a few different takes. Also, there's a few comments that we've had. It's like, yeah, but a lot of those games are just because it's easier to publish a game on Steam right now. But there's actually not that many, quote unquote, good games being launched. I'm wondering, like, what's your take on like the actual industry right now? Like, are some of these games not going to market because you think they're not good enough, or you think it was actually down to the marketing?
You're seeing a couple of trends at the moment. One, you're seeing massive industry consolidation of bigger gaming studios, especially at the mobile layer. We've just seen the largest LBO in history with EA. We saw Scopely acquired 24 months ago, a number of mobile publisher acquisitions. And the reason this is happening is most games now succeed or fail based on how efficient they can get their advertising, not how good the game can be, particularly in mobile. In desktop, it's still a little more brand driven. And the problem with that is it's pulling up the ladder on anyone except a game studio, which is part of these giant conglomerates in terms of their ability to succeed. I think it's something like 90+% of games will never earn back their investment. And obviously gaming is a very hit driven industry. And we think that's a shame because so many of these games don't achieve that, not because the game isn't good, but just because they don't have a team of 1,000 performance marketing experts, CAC specialists who are driving down attention costs across every platform, and monetization experts who are the best in the world at figuring out how they can extract marginal dollars from their users, often in a way that is not super aligned with players' interests. And so our thought is pretty simple, which is how do we create software that makes it incredibly easy for any game developer in the world to succeed? And the cool thing is we've spent the last 7 years working with hundreds of games. We've shipped multiple games by ourselves. Fundamentally, what we're focused on is how do we improve economic models, acquisition costs, and loyalty with crypto. And now this latest product that we've built, Immutable Audience, makes all of that invisible, and it is basically created software that is the most efficient landing page software, is the most efficient homepage for games on the internet. And I'll share the generic principles because there's nothing special about what we do. We've just made it incredibly easy to use, and anyone listening can basically implement these whether they want to use our software or not. But B, we've actually made it incredibly easy to, instead of going out and hiring a 10-person marketing team, performance marketing specialist, an attribution specialist, a channel manager, a copywriting specialist, a lifecycle marketing expert, someone who's going to think about brands, someone who's going to be your website designer, your CRM engager, your monetization designer for launch. Like, there are so many different specialist roles, and the meta for what works most efficiently updates every 12 months. And really what we've just tried to say is, how do we build a single piece of software that games can come to and is super opinionated on here's what you need to do to have best-in-class acquisition, best-in-class engagement leading up to your launch.
You mean the software, I guess it has an LLM or an AI, it can talk back to you and tell you what you need to do, or?
It can, but it's also designed to not be, I'll give you one example. We've basically built out full email marketing and lifecycle marketing in this software. And instead of saying, hey, you can kind of program this any way you want, instead we've said, we actually are very opinionated about this is the best way to do lifecycle and email marketing. Most game studios aren't experts at this, and we will literally generate this for you, tell you when you should email your users at what time of the day, based on the information we have.
So it's not just the tool.
Exactly. So we're hyper opinionated around how to create the best results for video games, rather than just being a generic horizontal software. And we think that's really important because it is so expensive and so difficult to do lots of these things if you're an independent studio or even a large studio to do all these things well.
Alrighty. Sweet. So you guys have a lot of data, and you probably have had many conversations, you and your team. So I feel like there's the Immutable back office opinion, and then there's a games industry opinion. I'm sure there's some difference. So in your conversation, like, what is the common misunderstanding about maybe why game launcher will do well, or what is this mistaken belief that people have when they go to do a launch a game? Like, what's the biggest one that makes you go like, please understand
Yeah,
this?
I would say like the number one mistaken belief is that you can just launch and spend all your marketing dollars post-launch and your game is going to go well. Particularly if you're a desktop game, this is the number one way to like guarantee that your game fails. And then the people who realize that are often like, yeah, of course, I need to grow my Steam wish lists. And the reality is I've seen games with 500,000 to 1 million Steam wish lists convert into almost nothing in terms of spend on the day.
That's ridiculous, right? Why would someone wishlist a game if they're not planning to buy it? So something's going wrong.
Because what it comes down to is Steam doesn't reveal any analytics. You have no idea the quality of the cohort of these players that you're bringing in through the door. And if you've tasked your marketing person, which is often the founder themselves or someone internally, with get the most Steam wish lists, they are going to go to the cheapest CAC source possible, which is probably the players who are the least likely to spend. They're probably from tier 3
Robbie,
economic
could I ask some stupid questions quickly?
Yes.
So Steam wish lists, you're saying there's like not even country-based analytics. It's literally just a number. I should know this, but
you get very little analytics on your Steam wish list to the point where I think there was literally an article that came out 2 weeks ago where they asked to send an email on the launch day, and literally the email failed to send. Now we like Steam wish lists, and we actively involve this in our software. For example, we've created a landing page that is driving more Steam wish lists per dollar that you send to our hyper optimized landing page for games than if you send it directly to the Steam wish list itself.
Yes,
and we give you the ability to contact and own the relationship with those players, to notify them on any surface, to connect their Discord, to connect their Epic Games platform. The whole goal is give a hyper optimized default page for your game where you can manage your customers, engage them automatically with AI, pre-written comms, lifecycle marketing, etc.
This is pretty, because I'm in the B2B world, right? So we're ghostwriting for founders, and we're currently in the funnel stage. We're trying to improve, like when we get the traffic, where do we take them? So before it's like book a call with the team. Now we're thinking, well, we might as well give them something. And I've seen you guys do this very well on LinkedIn. Like you're posting playbooks, you're giving before you're asking to book a call. And when I look at the game world, I don't know why. In my head, I'm like, yeah, you send them to Steam. I'm like, why would you send them to a company which doesn't give you the data? Like, at least send them here, and then they can also become a Steam wishlist. It's like making YouTube my company's website. Like you would just make you want the data, so you get.
You're totally right.
How granular do we get?
Well, it's like making YouTube your homepage. If they could change, and they regularly do change the algorithm, the software, and you don't even have the ability to contact your audience. And you were asking earlier, do they reveal geographic data about wish lists? They don't even reveal that. I think they reveal geographic data on page visitors and then eventual purchases. But the problem is people have no idea of the value of the cohorts they're acquiring prior to their launch. And there is an entire, literally multi-$100 billion industry built for how do you optimize your spend post-launch? Because that is easy. That is, we'll acquire a customer, let's see their ROAS, let's see how quickly they turn into a profit for the gaming company. There is almost no one thinking about how can we effectively help launch games and help games companies figure out the value of these users before they actually have something to sell them. And so we've developed basically what we call the Immutable unified attribute profile, where we basically take in all of their data from the wallet, all of their data from every connected surface, from Steam, from Discord, from YouTube, from Epic Games, from Reddit, all of their behavioral data on the platform. And of course, if they click ask, allow app to track, all of their app-based monetization and behavior from Apple or the Play Store. And we can build basically a predictive model that says, these are how likely these players are to spend, play, or engage with your game on launch day. These are the players you should focus on, and we can literally create an advertising pixel for you to retarget your best cohort prior to launch. So
you said Apple, sorry, I'm getting too excited. So you got the Apple and the Android. Does this work on desktop as well, that granular data, or is it?
Absolutely. It is actually primarily designed for desktop, but because we can create this unified attribute profile across all surfaces, we can basically collect data from everywhere and expose that to the game developer. And the best thing is the player is consented to all of this. The moment you sign up, we have a hyper-optimized landing page that's getting a GDPR consent, that's getting email consent. We're rewarding them for connecting these different surfaces. So our value proposition is we're just really good at getting players to say, hey, I'm going to create this sort of central profile where I'm going to connect everything. I'm going to get the best offers, best rewards from these games, and then those games are going to know how to tail the offer me in the most efficient way possible.
Whoa. So, like my experience with this is like Supercell ID. So I get a few cashbacks or I get some rewards. They do some Black Friday
Yes.
deals I couldn't find in the normal store. Happy days. What I'm hearing here is it can basically be the storefront and then be the hub. So you've kind of like democratized that, but also it's got behavior tracker across everything. Like I wanted
Totally.
to
So, I mean, this is a landing page built for the games. The game is the hero. This is literally like, it's fully branded. Like, these look beautiful, right? These are, they're fully designed by the games, and we actually.
you got one I can pull up.
Yeah, sure. Check out, for example, Might and Magic Fates, which is Ubisoft's game. I type that in, and then Might and Magic Fates Immutable Play.
mightandmagicfates.com. Would that work? Was this yours?
And then you want Immutable Play. So I can actually link you.
Yeah, let's do it, because I want to visualize this for people. Because
maybe even a better example today, just to keep it simple.
Alrighty, we've got 8-ball as well. Cool. So this is 8-ball. So I can understand how many people actually opted into those extra tracking. Like, do you have the stats on that? Like the percentage? Is it like a considerable amount? Is it 10%, 80%? I don't know.
So we are currently significantly beating Steam's. If you send a player directly to a Steam wishlist, we are typically beating the cost per wishlist while also signing them up to play, and therefore getting GDPR, email consent, the ability to connect other surfaces, and we're getting 40% more on Steam wishlists on an average case study basis, because we literally run A/B tests where we send, because remember, this is a new product that we're very much generating validation case studies for, but we're running A/B tests to both of these surfaces and comparing the results.
Cool. Okay.
With identical ads, etc.
What does this mean?
And the coolest thing is, so like the net, to summarize, Harry, the net thing we've been able to do, we are getting close to now 50 to 100% more wish lists per dollar spent, and then 50 to 100% higher likelihood that they play or purchase your game upon launch. Where if you combine them, that's anywhere between a 2.25 to 4x multiplier on your overall dollars spent in terms of ROI pre-launch. If you're looking at, I want to spend $1 and I eventually want to get someone to turn up and play my game or spend in my game. So the multiplicative effect is profound.
Okay. Let's say we know that this exists now. Like, are there any changes I should make to the way I'm launching or designing my game? Like, based on the ones that you've seen, is there any trends I should be aware of if I'm listening to this and I'm working on games?
Totally. Yeah, I think one of the most important things is you must keep your audience warm leading up to launch. Too many people basically think, a warm customer is someone you can contact and they're likely to open an email or open an engagement from you over a period of a month, and then eventually will convert at a much higher likelihood into playing or purchasing in your game. And so the biggest problem we see devs make is they go and have a great activation, they get a bunch of PR, some sort of successful campaign in the year before they launch, and they never talk to those players again until like 2 days out from launch. And these people are like, what the hell is this game? I can't even remember signing up to this. I don't trust this.
Newsletters. Like in my world, it's like, of course you don't build a newsletter and then activate it in a year's time. It doesn't mean much.
Precisely.
Like even it tells you the quality of your list goes down, down, down every month that they haven't opened an email. But
exactly, but it's hard. It's hard to do really good ongoing content. It's hard to figure out what to send when, what time of the world should you send things based on the geographies they're in, what CTAs are effective. Like, these are totally different problems to then building a great game. And they're problems that really we think game developers shouldn't have to struggle with, and there shouldn't have to be this big discrepancy based on it. So that's the number one advice I'd give to someone listening today is like, you must effectively figure out A, what's your most effective channel in terms of the metrics you actually care about, B, what are the value of those cohorts, and C, how do you engage them leading up to your launch? And of course, our software can help, but these are all things people can do by themselves if they're willing to put in the grit to do that.
I want to understand what you see as an optimal team now, because you mentioned at the start, like, you don't necessarily need a 10-person marketing team. So if we can talk to the marketers now, they are doing it the way they think they need to be doing it. Not everyone knows what they don't know and all that stuff. But like, if you're a games marketer now listening to this, like, is it too late to do this like halfway through warming up a game? Do you have to do this from the very start? Like, I'm just thinking, how do I act on this information? Do I need to go all in? Is it a gradual thing?
Yeah. So look, first of all, I'd say if you're already really good at demand gen and actually bringing in players, the goal of this software is just to act as a multiplier on all of those efforts. It's to say, hey, if you're already bringing in 10,000 users per week, this is going to mean that the 10,000, instead of converting into 500 wish lists, converts into 1,000. And then instead of those 500 converting into, 100 players, the 1,000 converts into 400 players. So like the goal is just to multiply the efforts through much more efficient software, retention, and activation methods. I would say the most important thing for marketers to be aware of right now is there's so much leverage you can get. I would tell someone there are now hires you no longer have to make, but also your existing team can get so much more done. They can hyper-personalize messaging. You can figure out what cohorts matter the most. You can create content with less input than ever that is perfectly written to your game's brand, your game's tone, in a super exciting way, all obviously with Gen AI. So I mean, I really think one of the biggest benefits is personalized, hyper opinionated content that is really engaging for your audience. And obviously you need the inputs for that content, but that's, I think, why it's such an exciting time in marketing land right now. And also from a performance marketing perspective, I mean, so many creatives are now being driven by Gen AI.
Yeah. I'm curious about this because I have a ghostwriting agency, right? And the way we use AI is if I interview the founder, I get a transcript. I have
Yep.
ideas already in my mind, but then I'm like, hey, AI, what are some good angles here that we may have not seen? And then I can then pick the ones and I have taste. But I feel like that works because I'm working with, let's say, 5, 10 clients at a time max. When you're talking
Yeah.
about thousands of wish lists, you said personalized. How can something be personalized? Like the thing that you're putting in, you say the input, and then it becomes personalized. Like basically, I've seen some dodgy AI writing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just very curious. Like when you say it's personalized, like how does that look in this
So
world?
today we're not writing one-off emails for every customer. I think that's probably like the biggest extent of personalization. I would just view it as a spectrum. And the first thing we've done is we've basically tried to create archetypes of different players based on their spend profile, their player profile, and then you can kind of pitch them exactly. And then you can pitch those cohorts. What activities are they most likely to engage in prior to launch? If you know they're a low propensity to spend, they say like from a low economically valuable region, you might pitch them more like social engagement, virality, things that are helpful to your game but are non-economic things, and you may not spend as much time with those players. If you know this cohort is Wales, and gaming monetization follows the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your customers will drive 80% of your revenue. 20% of those customers will drive 80% of that revenue. And so you very much want to be able to identify these are your whales, and these are who you should be tailoring custom communications to. Literally, even VIP, like one-on-one support, is worth it in some cases, depending on your game's monetization. And the cool thing we have in our data is we can only predict that. We know exactly how much they've spent on every other game or surface on Immutable Play, and we provide that data to our customers.
I'm very curious, like because a lot of people say like design for the whales, make sure there's enough spend depth, but you track whales across multiple games. I don't know if many other people are doing that apart from like very huge mobile gaming publishers who have like multiple titles. Like,
Precisely.
what does a whale
And
do?
the App Store has shut down a lot of this information with ATT and IDFA, which came in 2021, which really made the advertising landscape much more difficult for video games.
So yeah, like what does a whale look like? Because a lot of the reason I asked this is I had a podcast where someone, this was with Xenia. She was on the podcast previously, just for anyone listening, and she was talking about how they went to a VIP area where it was a VIP event, and they were like billionaire farmers, something crazy, and then they were like 27-year-old Saudi people, and then it's like
Yeah.
retired couple, all in the VIP event for this like play race game. So they all
Yeah.
look very different, different genders, different demographics, but that's that cohort. You see this across games. I wonder, like, what does a whale look like? Is it the stereotype, or is there anything interesting that you've seen?
Yeah, look, I think it depends on the genre of the game. I think it depends on the type of monetization of the game. You're going to see demographics wildly vary. Obviously, Japan is the single highest ARPU sort of average cohort in the world. And
Okay,
so a lot of your ordinary players there are whales by Western standards in terms of like their average spend on ARPGs, etc.
it's interesting.
There's a lot of whales, obviously, out of the UAE. There's a lot certainly still from the US. I think the most important thing is to be able to identify for your game, what is the cohort that you're trying to maximize? Is it whales, which is if you have very high spend depth, it's likely to be them? Is it just people actually purchasing a copy of your game for $80, and so you just want a very high percentage of real audiences from countries that are likely to pay with a high propensity to actually flow through to purchase?
Very cool. Alrighty. That's a lot. We went into a lot there. I feel like does it feel as, I don't know, this feels like a, I don't know, new era, I guess. Like this isn't what was the case last year. Like, are you getting this from people when you're talking to them? Like, wow, like we can now do this. Like, any examples that you've seen?
So the biggest things that have opened up, and we haven't even really touched on this, is like there is the culmination of two interesting trends at the moment in gaming. More games are coming out than ever. Distribution is harder than ever, and AI is going to keep that trend going. Right now, you can create 2D assets that look excellent, and I'm not even going to kind of buy into the Epic versus Steam debate. I think disclosure is fine if you want to, but clearly the trend is AI is going to drive so much of content creation in games. It is just like the law of physics of digital production at this point. And soon it's going to be 3D assets and mods and maps and NPC dialogue and NPC behavior. Like the overall cost of creating content is going to massively commoditize. And so the supply is going to get even higher. And at the same time, you have the most difficult advertising territory, the most competitive advertising territory, because all the marginal spend and all of, frankly, like the CPMs for valuable cohorts are being soaked up by hyper efficient, massive studios who know exactly how to optimize this stuff.
And some lost leaders as well, I'm hearing. Like some people will spend for a year, maybe just get their money back. Like some people can't afford to do that. Like at least on mobile, like the stuff I've seen on how much they would spend to get a user, like not really caring about the profit in the short term. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And the bigger these platforms become, the more they can afford to sort of invest into the future because they can share them between games and between audiences. So that's interesting. And then the other thing it's really interesting is, for the first time ever, the App Store monopoly on IAP fees has been broken. And they've had this huge regulatory moat, essentially, or it's a technical moat, but enforced by regulators for the last decade. And just how significant that is almost difficult to overstate, because a game's success or failure is basically the difference between, can it achieve an LTV to CAC of like 1.01 versus 0.99. The first game can scale profitably until that, basically marginally is no longer profitable. And the second game can never acquire a single user profitably. And so now, if you're earning 70 cents on the dollar and suddenly you don't pay that 30% Apple tax, your net profit margin is expanded by 42%. With things like stablecoins and wallet technology over the last year, we think these games can get another 5% on top of that, as well as creating loyalty systems that make it incredibly sticky for their players to purchase. So the net uplift is that all these games, which were literally at 0.7, now jumped that profitability threshold. So we think it's one of the most significant, essentially, openings in the infrastructure of gaming in the last couple of decades.
Yeah. And I've felt this very real. Like increasing 30 to 50% in your revenue doesn't increase the profit by 30 to 50% if everything else stays equal. It might 5x the profit if you have like...
Exactly, because suddenly you can spend to the marginal threshold, and you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, because like if people are able to make a profit in the current situation and they can get an extra 15, 30%, if your net profit was 10%, 30% extra revenue, it's like, oh, it's like it might double the bottom line, which is ridiculous. Very cool.
Yeah.
Great. So is this I'm just curious now, because we've been speaking about this for a bit now. Like, is this what you guys are working on, like all in now? Just curious, like Immutable. Is there anything else that you're cooking or?
Yeah, I mean, look, the core infrastructure, the chain and checkout infrastructure, the wallet technology we've been building is very much a core focus of the company. The exciting thing is this audience software line makes a lot of that invisible and then uses whatever is helpful to the end game. So, you don't have to build a sort of real money economy if you want to use it. You can, obviously, and we have the solution infrastructure there. But we think this is the way to basically, like, if you look at the biggest crypto company this year, it is Stripe. And they don't call themselves a Web3 payments company. They call themselves a financial infrastructure company, increasing the GDP of the internet. But also, you have Pat Colson on record saying stablecoins are going to 100x the TAM of financial payments, and they're essentially room temperature superconductors. So we think the same thing is going to happen to gaming. The most important shift is how do we actually improve the fundamental economics of these games, not why is this technology exciting. So I would actually love people to completely lose the term Web3 or Web2 games a year from now. I think it is just, here is technology that makes games more efficient, that makes players have a better experience and offers them more value.
I like that you said that, because I was in my previous company, on my company podcast, I started doing a few Web3 panels. And because there's a panel, there was like 3, 4 people. And if people went back and listened to those, there's usually 1 or 2. I'm like, what's happening? Like, what are you actually doing there? Like, I don't know what the fundamentals are of what you're building. And then when I speak to people like you, like, we're focusing on the game, right? Like, it's just the game. It's nothing else around it. Like, when I keep hearing about the Web3 from people in industry, all of them, and I do mean all of them, look at it like, unless someone's coming in as a challenger, they're thinking, oh, okay, this is what we're doing as new technology. But all the traditional games industry just have, at least the ones I've spoken to, this perception of what Web3 is. I think it's because we're overcomplicated. They think Web3 equals this type of game. So
Totally.
this type
I totally agree. Exactly. And our whole goal is we should be able to increase the efficiency of every game on the planet. That's what this software does. And, it's been our fastest growing product line ever. This product has grown in the space of under a year on a SaaS basis alone to 0 to 8 figures in ARR. So that's with last cycle, we had 0 churn apart from structural churn, games that ran out of money. So we are solving such an important need for these games right now. And I think that's coming through the market. And so really, our goal is to scale this to as many games as possible over the next few years.
Yeah, fair play, man. Like, it's really cool. Like, it's really cool to see. Are you doing any Europe trips next year? Or are you staying in Australia? Kind of
look, I'm always through at some point, so I'm sure I'll be there for the Bitcraft conference or something.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, lovely. So in terms of the maybe AAAs now, so I think we focused a lot on just like the average person. Is there anything the AAAs were doing a couple years ago that you looking now like, what on earth are you guys doing when it comes to scaling?
Yeah, so the biggest thing with AAAs is a lot of their spend is changing from monolithic big brand campaigns to like, how do we activate 1,000 KOLs, 1,000 influencers, et cetera, and track all of that efficiently. And again, this is where I think, interestingly, our software has been super efficient at being able to like be a central point where you can look at every marketing dollar you spend and working out where should your marketing dollar go in terms of efficiency, as well as tracking and using all of that data. So like the most interesting thing about what we're building is every customer that signs up to your play page, every influencer which sends you a customer or channel source, every time they open an email, all of this data feeds back in to make that machine more efficient. Whether it's, we know how to tailor an email campaign based on the UTM, which says actually this person for this trading card game is bought in by Kriparian, so we're going to put his face on the first email we send them and sail the lifecycle marketing around that. That's the personalization that AI unlocks, and basically personalizing based on experiences players have already had is one of the most efficient things you can do in sort of lifecycle marketing. And so it's this data flywheel with every player signing up, the ability to market and figure out who you want to spend the next dollar to acquire becomes much more efficient.
You mentioned that you can point influencer campaigns into Immutable. Why is that different than pointing them to the Steam page? Right? Obviously, wishlist number goes up. Wishlist number goes up when it goes to Immutable. Is there anything else happening? Like, we getting like granular tracking of like where everyone came from? People submitting the forms like, I was recommended by.
It's everything. 1, you get to know exactly where they came from. 2, you get all the data on what does that player then go on to do, and what is the modeled out predictive value of whether that player will spend. And then we can match that to do they actually spend in the end. 3, you get the ability to own the relationship with that customer and connect every gaming surface that they have, not just send them to a random wish list where they just do one action. You get them to do that anyway, but then you can also connect their Steam, their Reddit, their YouTube, their Discord, every social service that they're spending time on. And then all that data goes into automated engagement and retention marketing that we will literally, like, AI will write for you. All you have to do is click send or set up the email sequence, and they will retain and engage 50 to 100% better than if you just sent them to a wish list. So our whole goal is, we call it the double. How do we double your wish list or initial sign up metric and conversion through our hyper optimized landing page? Then how do we double the amount of those people who go on to play or spend in your game, which is a 4x overall.
Wow. So just to understand, each person, I'm guessing, has like an immutable creator code, and then it's very clear where they came from, and then
Or
we
just a
see
UTM. Exactly.
Yeah. So you can actually track if a influencer has a small audience, but their audience is so well placed for your game that their kind of market rate for whatever they charge, you get a massive arbitrage because you know how much they're spending. You don't know, they came in and brought 10 players, but like those 10 players might have been gods, like whales.
Totally. Yep. And that's a really important point, which is you can spend as much money as possible to get users, and unless those users spend money, you've gained nothing. And you could get 10 users and they could be whales and it could be the best spend ever. So knowing the value of a cohort is the most important thing. That's why Apple is a $200 billion company, because they understand marginal propensity to consume of players better than anyone at the time they're selling the ad. And we're basically building this out pre-launch for any spend that you're doing anywhere, whether it's an influencer, whether it's organic, whether it's paid ads, whether it's PR. They all go through this machine. You get to own the relationship, you get the best lifecycle marketing possible, and they'll activate with a much higher propensity.
Very cool. You mentioned Japan being the most valuable cohort. I'm curious.
So obviously games that they like to play, but that is the highest average spend cohort in the world for video games.
Is there anything that you see people in the East doing, game development wise, that maybe people in the West should be doing? I want to ask you all these perspective questions because you have a very unique position where you can see all these game launches and you actually have the data. So,
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, structurally, I assume you mean Asia here?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of commentary when I see someone goes to a conference in Asia. They come back saying, "Oh my god, they're doing things differently here." Like it's every time I see it, and at least maybe this will open a few conversation threads. Like I see people saying they are building the teams. I think I saw an example where someone in Vietnam, where the head of like marketing is like the head honcho, or it's like they're pretty much the head honcho, and then everyone making the games, they come underneath the person who's in the marketing, where in some other places in the West is a bit different. So that's one example. Another example is maybe I think the speed and the iteration and how much they make games based on the conversion rate of a mobile ad. And these things make sense from a B2B sense, but I think there is just like turned up to 11. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that you've seen that maybe kind of people can take away.
You know, the biggest difference is between mobile versus desktop games in terms of the development approach. And that makes sense. You know, I remember speaking to a good friend of mine, Justin Waltron, who was one of the founders of Zynga. And when I met him 8 years ago as an advisor to the company, and the first thing he said to me is that for mobile games, half the budget was spent on the first 3-minute slice of the game to see, can you get someone to stick around for the benchmark times? And if you couldn't get it for
development budget?
Half of the development budget.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to basically see whether it should be greenlit or not. Because if you can't get someone to stick around for the first 3 minutes, the rest of the game doesn't matter. And so it's really
3-minute retention.
Exactly. And so it's obsession with what's the vertical slice, and based on the data, is this going to work? And there are mobile companies are famous. They will plow $10 million into a game, $10 million into the launch, and then pull the game if it doesn't hit their prescribed metrics at day 7 and day 14, because it's not worth their time to allocate more capital to that game. It's very different to the desktop games, which is much more of a brand-driven approach. And I think marketing is, quite frankly, a lot harder, a lot more opaque there, because it is much more around build up your brand for a big bang launch, generate virality, generate word of mouth. And that's really where we're actually trying to bring a lot of clarity to the efficiency of that spend.
Yeah, because there's so many parallels to the business world, but I don't know why I haven't made them before, because they're not like crazy. Own your list, like it's very common business sense. Like you don't ideally want to have your whole business on something like Amazon because they own your customers. So ideally, you want to have a plan to get rid of it. But like in the games industry, I don't see people talking about it, which is so crazy to hear. Like it's.
I think it's just there's really a lack of alternatives. People are not thinking about these problems. We're so surprised continuously. We talk to these game developers, and their number one problem is they don't know how to efficiently market their game. They feel comfortable on the development side. And so it's very gratifying to see the impact we can have overnight for a lot of these people.
Beautiful. Are there any? Because you said you grew the business crazy amount, so I'm guessing that's small devs, that's big devs. Any
So
examples?
everyone, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, Treeverse, we helped hit #1 most streamed game for its category at launch. For Ubisoft, we're basically delivering 40% increase in cost per wish list on a like-for-like basis versus running ads directly to Steam. Obviously, we're excited to activate for their launch, which should be end of January for Might and Magic Fates. There's a number of games that are, I think, really delighted with what they've been able to achieve. And the most important thing, again, is it's a multiplier on all of your other efforts. It's if you're already doing X, Y, and Z, you can now do that with 50% more efficiency through this software. And if you don't have any idea what to do, it'll be pretty opinionated around doing all the basics, from having the best place to send your users, having the best place to engage them, and having the best place to activate them, and even things like we're looking at earned and owned media, etc., and how you can actually build all these free artifacts that will passively bring you in users.
Yeah, beautiful. Is there an MVP studio you think now? Like, if you get this sort of data, if you build a game and it gets X amount of metrics, you could then go take that to a publisher or investor versus before you build the vertical slice, you got to convince publishers, like, do you think this will do big numbers? Like, at least in the mobile gaming world, investment wise now, it's
You're
so
totally
much
right.
tail end, right? Like, I'm wondering now you don't need to wait too long in the real world because you've got such better granular data.
Yeah, this is actually really exciting. I don't think anyone's yet saying raising $20 million off the back of just the cohort information, but I'd like to be in a place in 6 months where an investor could look at this and say, hey, look, we actually understand the value of this cohort that you've built, because investors do use wish lists and they increasingly distrust the value of a wish list alone without the analytics accompanying it. So I think that's where we can actually provide a pretty useful layer of transparency.
But that changes everything. I'm being very dramatic, but I think I think I have a reason to, because if now investors are looking to invest in games which have metrics that they can be like, we know what's going to happen. The previous, losing my voice, the previous examples of this is Steam wishlist numbers. And we had our most popular episode is called The Game Scout. Why publishers kind of, what are they getting into? And they basically said, if you get 10,000 wishlists or more, they will take you a bit seriously. And if you have a community, even better. And that's kind of what they were looking at, like not that long ago, a few months ago. And now I'm like, well, if you can track where these users are come from, the value of each user, like imagine I have a wish list with X amount of people from this country, and they came from this influencer, which has typically resulted in these type of players. That's a nice slide deck. That's a much nicer one. Like if I'm being an investor now, but like that may bridge the gap a little bit because investors wouldn't make that bet before. But when you have all this data, it's a much more compelling thesis.
You're exactly right, Harry. And this is we've talked extensively about this internally. Is like, how do we help solve this problem of giving investors certainty and giving games clarity of proof points they can show to investors to say, hey, like we actually built something really valuable. People really want it.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
It's exciting. Yeah, I know, it's really exciting. It's surprising how blue ocean a lot of this stuff is. There's really not that many people thinking about it. So I think we're in a privileged position to be able to build a lot of this stuff out, especially in a consolidated single point software solution. You know, we're really, I think vertical AI SaaS, right, is the hottest meta right now. And it is for a reason, which is it's never been easy to build out point solutions in a opinionated way for a single customer to solve all of these needs. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with audience.
Yeah, beautiful. Lovely. If you don't mind, take a bit of a pivot here. The company that you've built from the outside, right, it looks incredible, like big numbers, amazing, but you've been doing this a long time. And I'm just curious if there's maybe any lessons for anyone like building teams here or what have you, any lessons you learned the hard way, because you've been through a few pivots as far as I understand, and you've raised a stupid amount of money. And I think a lot of people might learn from that journey. Is any big thing? Is the most generic question, but I found that it gives me very good answers.
Many lessons. I'm very happy to share.
Yeah, my question is like, what do you tell Robbie day one Immutable versus now in terms of what do you wish that person knew?
Yeah, very happy to share. So I think number one is hire slow and hire the smartest people you know and be extraordinarily selective. And whatever you think is extraordinarily selective isn't. You can raise the bar further, but there is, especially in today's world with the leverage you get from AI, no downside in hiring better people. And I would always pay more to get the talent quality you need and have fewer people internally. And the best people we hired internally at the start were people we had networks and relationships with. I literally went out and hired the smartest few people that I knew, and they all, I think, literally, all three of those people are still at the company today. So I really cannot recommend highly enough talent density. And to get more tactical and very practical, one, interviewing is only half the process. We trust back channels and references more than interviewing. References
Really?
only count. Absolutely, because an interview is enough to tell you someone can fail, can't do the job. It's not enough to tell you that someone can do the job.
I thought
Number
you
one,
would say test over references. I didn't expect you to say references.
they're both necessary. They're both must-haves. The important thing about references is most people do them in a way that gives absolutely zero signal. If you just call up or have your talent team call up their previous employer and ask, was this person any good? 99% of people will say, yeah, they were like pretty good. And like that tells you absolutely nothing.
What's the right way to put a reference, Robbie?
Exactly. So really, you need like two things. One, back channels are more valuable than references. Having someone you have a strong relationship with proactively say, these are the best people I've worked with. Like every new hire, we sit down and say, who are the top people you've worked with ever in your career? It doesn't matter if they don't fit for the company. It doesn't matter if they're overseas. It doesn't matter what they're doing. We'll put them in a list and we'll see if we can somehow fit them into the company. And the second thing is you must be closer to the reference than they are to the person they're referring. Otherwise, you're just not going to get any signal. So those are my lessons on hiring, like slow to hire very much, quick to fire. Like you have to figure out, is someone a match for the company within the first 2-3 months? It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your team if you wait longer or if you have low standards. There is nothing that will kill high performers' motivation more than having to work with low performers or people they think are not pulling their weight in terms of the team and effort. I would also say most people work on far too many priorities. This is tricky if you're a game developer. So,
by the way, you're speaking to one, right? The post coming out in 10 minutes is like I've started a B2B event brand. I've also ghostwriting for founders, and we do outbound for those founders. And I have a podcast, and I think I will be doing an accelerator for the B2B games industry in February. But my kind of defense is it all serves the same goal, which is help people have more conversations. It's just in my head more leverage, but it doesn't help with the sleep and whatnot. So I feel the pain. I'm like, how do I not do it? I'm in that situation now. Like I get it, but like I still feel compelled to do these 5 different things.
Yeah. And look, all I would say is at any point in time, there is only ever one constraint on a business or an enterprise.
Yeah.
That again is the physics of a business. And the hardest thing and the most important thing is for you to figure out what that constraint is and only work on that or work on that with the most intensity until it's solved. And sequencing problems is much better than approaching them simultaneously, is the other thing I would say, because it's very, very easy. If I gave you 5 problems and they're like the 5 top problems for your business, you'll be able to smash 3 or 4 of them. And like the one most important one, typically the biggest constraint, you will not solve because it's hard. It requires 6 months of continuous effort. But if you solve it, it will be the next sort of exponential growth for your business. So that was the other big learning I had.
Any example of a constraint that you didn't realize was so big until you actually solved it?
Yeah, sure. Being able to scale to Web2 games was the biggest company constraint because we had basically built complete market dominance of all Web3 games. We had all the market share, and yet we didn't have software that could be easily used by any game in the world, which is the biggest constraint because the scale and difference of those markets is 100-fold. And so we focused and we solved that constraint at the start of the year, and now it's been our most successful product ever and is fundamentally changing how we think about taking this technology to the world. So I really say, and there's a great book on constraint theory called The Goal by Eli Goldbrat. Highly recommend. So yeah,
very cool. Like I recently started becoming a kind of big boy business owner, I guess, and started looking at constraint only. And when I actually looked at it, it was like hire writer, and then I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't trying to hire a writer for the last 4 months. That was not, even though that was the only constraint. Hired the writer, and I'm like, cool. Now I need to know how to build the systems around it. And it's just like one after the other. And
Mm.
I feel like when you solve the constraint, then the next one becomes a lot more clear. But I'm very much, yeah, a bit scatter in terms of I love working on multiple things, but the one constraint thing is very useful. I'm just curious at your level now. Do you live by calendar blocking? Do you have an assistant? Any top tips for someone who's maybe a founder of a studio? They're going to be pulled in every direction, right?
Yeah, I do. I have a weird one that we only started doing this year, but every morning I will sit down with my two co-founders and we will all commit to what our top goal for the day is. And we'll all interrogate each other's top goals and say, is this actually the highest leverage use of your time? Is this going to move the business forward? And is this goal smart? AKA, is it objective, specific,
Yeah,
measurable, action-oriented, whatever, time-bound?
time bound, all that jazz.
And then at the end of the day, we will present to the other two founders what we got done against that goal.
Every day?
Every single day. And it is very manual, but this level of intensity and commitment to every day we must get the most important thing we could possibly do for the business done. And we know it's the most important thing because we've all literally spent 10 minutes interrogating each other's goals. And two, we know we're going to get it done because we have to present at the end of the day.
Yeah, you got the accountability, right?
It's
So
pretty remarkable.
Like a stand-up, but you only do it because I kind of have that with like the Foku teams. I have my older brother, and we're building these events. So
it's a stand-up with rigorous standards on what, like, one goal. It must be the most valuable thing. Everyone will debate that, and it's a very high psychological safety meeting. Like, I find this is almost, it's difficult to even do with teams because, like, you have to be like, hey, this is a BS goal. This is not the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you have to basically be like, hey, I got this done or I didn't, and here's why I didn't, here's why I did.
Yeah.
But that single change, I believe it means, like, you go from getting 2 of these done a week to like 4.5. And that means you progress the business at literally 80% faster, like 4.5 or 2.5. So like,
I'm gonna try that, Robbie. I like it. I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know if
it's very manual, but it really worked for us.
It's really cool because I do that anyway. By my issue, I have multiple tasks. Like, well, all the things you want to do today, and then when something doesn't get done, I'm like, oh, okay, you did all the rest. But if we just have one thing,
so just report on one thing.
Nice. I like that. Very cool. In terms of the marketing side, this is just something that came to mind because I've get this question. I had a indie founder who's actually on the podcast, and he listened to one of the marketing podcasts we did, and he said, any advice on how to do marketing with performance marketing? And I know this person specifically, so I want to tell you a bit about his circumstances, and maybe you can just tell him what he could do. I can just send him this clip. So he goes to a lot of conferences and he pitches the game to publishers, to investors, and also wants to get metrics and whatnot. But he's very much a conference basher. Like, he does loads, lives and breathes it, and he's very good at booking meetings with the publishers. That's kind of what he spends most of his time doing as the founder. I'm wondering what you feel about that, just from where you are when it comes to maybe, I think it's basically how to publish your own game, right? Like, do you feel like maybe he still needs to do that? Is there anything wrong with kind of spending all your time going to publishers?
There's nothing wrong trying to network publishers. I would say it's much easier to do when you have social proof on your game. You before referenced the fact that if you get above 10,000 Steam wish lists, if you have a community, people are much more interested. And so our advice is like, just like the advice of, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, like actually have enough of an interesting asset before you go and have these conversations, because you're going to have far fewer and they're going to convert much better. So put all your effort into actually unblocking the key progress in your game, getting traction with your community, and getting these early social proof metrics before you go and do those, and the conversation will be much, much easier.
It's like dating, I guess. If you're gonna pick a time when to go to the gym, you probably do it before you start your dating stream.
Yes. Appreciate it as an asset before you're going to present yourself. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Nice. Lovely. I'm curious, just before we close here, the next steps for you, Robbie. I asked you this before, but like, you want to build this big enterprise. I'm just very curious, like, why are we doing this? Are we doing this? Like, what's the reason? I'm very curious because
I mean,
I feel
I
like I
wake
would
up
be.
every day and yeah, I love what I do. I love the team that I work with. I think we're solving a really important problem, and I think we're helping basically 3 billion people get better value out of games. There's 3.3 billion games every month, and also hundreds of thousands of people working on games have a chance to see their game succeed because of the quality of the game rather than fail because they don't know how to market. So I both love what we do, love the team, and also just love business and getting better at business. So that's probably the pretty boring but pragmatic
Beautiful.
answer. Yeah.
Lovely. Robbie, do you mind telling people exactly what they could do to maybe get in touch, maybe get in touch with the team, try the product?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say do one or two things. Number one, if you want to, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a chat about your game. Two, go to immutable.com, apply. There's a form, takes 20 seconds, and our team of growth experts will literally do a 20-minute breakdown of your game and tell you where we see all the problems and where we see opportunities to improve. Like, we're not going to hard sell you or hard pitch you anything. You can have the call and never call us back. But that's something we can absolutely do as well. So I'd say either one of those things, and we'd love to help, even if it's just a friendly conversation.
Lovely. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Alrighty. Bye, everyone.